Welcome back, Guardians. I hear many of you have received a gift from the tree inside the Cradle of Io, a tree branch of sorts, but also what many believe to be a symbolic offering as well. That the darkness, or its physical form, that of the pyramids, are providing boons to those removing the interference set by Savathun and her minions in chains to her will. But the weapon, or the branch of a tree, broken off and given to us to build and shape, has certain implications. That the darkness also provides an opportunity to understand the light, philosophically and scientifically. Many of our recent reports have discussed the narrative thread between the dark and the light, in an attempt to prepare you for the future of our relationship with these paracausal gods and agents. But now it seems we may have one first real-world example, quite literally at our fingertips, of how the light and the dark interact. In short words, it reinforces the theory that dark and light are the same energy, tied in some unnatural way, and rather it is on the user, the catalyst in the hands, the mind, or the will to create void, arc, solar, and now we imagine to be as cold or stasis. These energies all come from a single source, a tether from our physical realm to the powers that infuse our reality with light and dark, forming almost microfibers to everything, organic or otherwise. But why a gift? Why this weapon so delicately named the Ruinous Effigy? What do the pyramids intend to teach us? Hopefully, this report will better arm you with the knowledge and insights to answer these questions. It's not secret that the Vanguard commander is hesitant, slightly untrusting of our mission to Io on behalf of Eris and the Drifter, but many falsely accuse this distrust as a division, rather than what it is, a conflict of morality, a conflict of religious dogmas for servitude of the light. Zavalas fears, as many should, that the war we face on the horizon will claim extreme collateral damage, far surpassing the Red War. In essence, he fears that our mission to understand the darkness and these pyramids will cause more loss than just death. He fears Guardians could be corrupted by this energy, be entrapped and seduced by the coldness they exude, the paralleled opposite of the warming heat the light provides us. But his fear should be recognized and examined. We've been tricked before. We've lost many. And while certainly we've won a plethora of magnanimous victories, it does not necessarily mean that glory will again be attached to our names. Many Guardians fail to see the human casualty of our wars with the Hive, the Taken, the Scorn, the Vex, and the Cabal, and now perhaps these pyramids. In some form or fashion, we tend to lose sight of our original mission every time a new enemy comes to our border, at least in the mind of Zavala. We are intended to defend our last city, not expand its borders, not build a war machine, and not be overtly aggressive in our declarations of power. This shouldn't be seen as some secular blindness from Zavala, but rather a key hesitation to preserve a fighting force in the years to come. If the core group of Guardians we've taken under the tutelage of the darkness began to question their nature of the relationship with the light, what then of the last city's defense? Many reported that Zavala and Ikora have given orders to evacuate key human positions across the solar system. Io, Titan, Mars, and Mercury are now under threat from the darkness-infused pyramid ships, and due to some knowledge gleaned from our previous collapse, our information has shown us nothing in our arsenal allows for a way to defeat the pyramids, even less so penetrate their stasis shielding. Our great warmind Rasputin was rendered inert, effectively eliminating a crucial wartime ally the last city would have. Our last resort, and perhaps the rationale for Zavala's somewhat change in temperature, is to research and reach within the darkness via Eris's decrypted messages, to understand their goals, their objectives, and ideally their weakness. But many fear, and perhaps rightfully so, that the real war will be not for this system, or the planets, or the mounds and hills of dirt we call battlefields, but rather the heart and souls of Guardians sworn to protect those who cannot muster the strength or capacity. A first step in the war of subversion and division from the pyramid comes in the form of a gift, a branch of organic material from the tree to be formed into a weapon of transfusion named the Ruinous Effigy. Banshee44, our somewhat forgetful gunsmith expert, has had a chance to analyze this gift, now turned weapon, by many Guardians. Its need of both light and darkness, a combination to form from calcified light, and an empowerment via Savathun's pawns, has now transformed it into a weapon of untold and even unrecognizable power. But Banshee44's research into this weapon has turned over incredible insights on how this weapon feeds, yes, feeds off our Guardian's light. It's much similar to a converter from light to dark, as is a machine that you must take our light for full effectiveness. Perhaps that surprises few amongst you. After all, many have reported that upon their first holding of this weapon, hands clutching firmly against the paracausal trigger, that you felt a snapping and leeching cold, if only for a second, as if a tether between you and the weapon had been formed, a new symbiosis of light and dark, one feeding the creation of the other.
Zavala puts a hand on Banshee's shoulder, smiles and gestures to the weapon. Equipment that uses the wielder's light is not unprecedented.
It doesn't use it, it eats it. Thing's got an appetite. Works almost like a converter.
Is it dangerous?
Nah, Guardian doesn't even seem to notice.
Interesting, isn't it? You don't notice that a weapon is eating your light, pulsing out an incredible laser of darkness-empowered void energy, all in an effort to expel your enemies. There are even some reports of users seeing void energy balls after a foe is removed. Essentially, the weapon collapses an enemy's organic matter into a highly densified version of void material, which the user can then utilize further as both a shield or weapon. Some Guardians revel in this experience, quoting, "Brings back some nostalgia of the old-school Crucible game we've played. They called it Rift. Wonder what Shaxx did to that." Nostalgia and conjecture aside, it's clear that this weapon can create a parasitic relationship with the wielder. The good news is the energy it seems to harness from its user isn't deadly, at least for short-term use. Users would utilize the void material balls created from the corpses of foes that were slaughtered, have reported the prolonged use of the shield's functionality will drain the user's light at expedited rates, but it isn't something that prevents a ghost's revival. So clearly the unity of the weapon extends to Guardians and not their light-tethered ghosts, which may help reveal our connection with our ghosts even further. Regardless, many believe the primary concern is not that the user is afflicted with prolonged use, but rather that the user doesn't notice its light is being leached away. It's almost too perfect a weapon. Shouldn't a weapon that pulls the light from your skin be noticeable by Guardians wielding this monstrosity? Perhaps, just perhaps, this can explain the nature of the weapon, that the darkness and the light are relatively the same form of energy, that they live far ends on each other's spectrum, and that the move from one side to the other is almost, well, effortless. More study and long-term examination will be required for future hypotheses to be created, mind you, but the initial reporting is supportive of the idea that paracausal energy, power, magic, whatever you choose to name it, is the same, and that the wielder, or the catalyst, is the one who gives that energy a side or a mission. Potentially damning language aside, we should be mindful of the point Zavala has attempted to raise with Eris. I fear they are both right. and both wrong in their assumptions of the darkness. The civil war for Guardians and the allegiances of ideology began the second Eris stepped on Io, and Zavala subtly condemned her mission. But Eris knows full well that she sits in between two camps of Guardians, those that trust her wisdom, her story, her tribulations, and those that see her allegiances to the Queen, to the city, to the Vanguard, to us as multifaceted duplicity. She is in totality a spy to some and a savior to others. But you may ask the question, she remains the only agent capable of translating the messages of the pyramids for the curious to read and digest. Savathun's interest in obscuring these messages is being quelled by brave and consistent efforts of many Guardians aside. She has translated the messages to her best ability, and what we have most recently received is a gift, but perhaps a box wrapped in a dangerous seduction. The tree branch we have been given to be transformed into a most powerful weapon is a simple seduction, a doorway leaning open where a piercing shadow of a prize sits yet on the other side, beckoning to be yielded, to be swayed, to be touched. The darkness intends to convert us with power, information, knowledge, and its truth. All the material and immaterial things Guardians covet. The darkness holds these things in sheer abundance. To think that a weapon of such potential could be created by exquisitely refining light and darkness. All this effigy takes is but the will of the user to craft it, then to wield it to transform a world into its image. Not your image, mind you. The weapon is organic in nature, a living thing, perhaps, eating light, transforming it into a somewhat controllable beam of pure energy. This is perhaps the first of many attempts the darkness will use to subvert us, first with our curious nature as humans, then to arm us with knowledge, then to provide us a spear pulled from the very walls of the Paracausal fleet. Zavala may be right. This path we continue to forge is ringed in potential downfalls, impasses that will distract us and even turn us from our objectives. But our hunger to know more, to yearn for understanding, is almost as unquenchable as the weapon's hunger for light. A small taste livens our palate, and we ache for more and more until we are satisfied, if we are unable to be even truly sated. The gift given to us as an olive branch offering should be considered untrustworthy at best, and as a dangerous infiltrator at worst, with efforts being made to sway us from war against the pyramid and to aim our rage against the light. We have a long and perilous road ahead of us, Guardians. The weapon you wield, the light it eats, the transformations it can provide are all signs of a wind of change, blowing at our backs, lifting us ever so slightly into the sky. But it is only by the brave and countless efforts you all continue to provide that we, as humanity, can ever hope to strive for a true peace, free from the machinations of gods and agents, from seducers and spies, from sky and from deep. Stay safe, Guardians. The weapon you wield may very well have a hunger to grow in its coming days, and if you are so brave to feed it, ensure you are strong enough to weather the potential consequences. Hey everyone, Wally here. Now before I say anything, I want to give a huge shout out to fellow lore seeker and content creator Living Lore. I have his YouTube channel pinned in the comment section if you want more AAA juicy voice acting and some immersive lore reads. Now Living Lore is new to the content creation game, but already the quality he provides and the passion he infuses into his videos are top-notch and deserving of additional looks and support from fellow lore seekers and enthusiasts like us all. Give the man some love when you get a chance, and I hope for future collabs with this dude. Great voice acting. Mucho appreciated, man. Thank you very much. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this one. I really had a lot of fun kind of going into the lore here. The weapon lore, in my opinion, is a little light, but I think there's a bit of symbolism we can pull from the story thus far. Beyond the idea of like a paracasual power or paracausal power being on the same spectrum, right? I think that's a theory that we've infused here a couple times, and I hope we're starting to see more of that. That's at least my opinion. I don't know if you all agree with it. Okay if you don't. Zavala has had this sort of sheer reluctance to continue support with Eris and obviously our own efforts to commune with the pyramids, but he isn't so militant to cancel his mission outright. He knows quite well wars are not going to be won by the ignorant. His worry isn't misplaced though. I think there is an abundance of foreshadowing being provided to us here. The prophecy dungeon, Eris's messages, this new weapon all speak to a shift of how we will view and ultimately use the dark and light as powers. Anyway, that's enough for me. More lore coming up Wednesday and next Sunday. You guys are all awesome. Thank you very much for the support, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.